makes me feel like I'm flying apart.
With our case studies, you'll hear the stories of people whose lives have been forever changed.
All of a sudden, I feel like my whole body is on fire. Every inch of my skin is burning. And I realized I couldn't move.
The researcher who thinks he's discovered an alien agenda.
There's a very great interest on the part of the UFO occupants in human reproduction.
They do need our genes to propagate their own species.
The abductee who claims he's been forced to breed with his captors.
I was with an alien that wasn't totally at will. It's hard to explain.
The survivors who struggle to cope with the aftermath of their ordeals.
I know how crazy it sounds for a woman to say she's been implanted with an alien fetus, but I'm sorry, it's the truth.
The experts who believe the shocking accounts.
These people have been traumatized by a very real and present experience in their lives.
And the skeptics who say it's all a figment of the imagination.
They can't tell the difference between whether it was a memory or a real event.
And you'll see our final analysis of all the evidence in our Unex report as we uncover the facts about alien contacts on Unexplained Mysteries, Taken, the Abduction Phenomena. Over the past 3 decades, the number of reported alien abductions has skyrocketed. Men and women claim to have been taken by extraterrestrials and transported on beams of light into spacecraft. In order to unlock these incredible stories, experts have experimented with regressive hypnotherapy.
Over and over again, we get these hidden consistencies in abduction reports which come out through hypnosis.
These individuals report this experience as real. It is not dream, it is not fantasy, it is not delusion.
Abductee accounts revealed under hypnosis are shocking in their consistency.
And this is when I saw the spotlight then was doing this like a beam.
Once the beam of light hit me, I was paralyzed.
And at that moment, that's when I was on the craft.
They were about 3 feet tall.
Maybe this high.
Their skin looked like it was made of marshmallow.
White, pale color.
And they had real big eyes.
Large, dark eyes.
While most abductees speak of being taken by the often described gray alien depicted here, others report insect-like characteristics in some of their captors.
There's one being in particular that I always recognize, and he's not a gray. He's taller, he's thinner, he's got a bigger head, he's got bigger eyes. His limbs are very praying mantis-like.
There have even been sightings of extraterrestrials that seem to be alien-human hybrids. According to experts, one of the most telling signs of abduction is a gap of hours or days that cannot be accounted for.
This missing time aspect is very, very common in abduction experiences, where the person cannot remember where he or she was.
One possible reason for the lost time, alien testing. With uncanny similarity, nearly all report being subjected to insidious medical experiments.
The person will describe being on a table, which is generally metallic. They are unable to move. They describe operations which take place.
The next thing I remember, they have this thing in front of my eye,
Like a metal instrument that was kind of like shaped like an L. And it went all the way back down to here, though, in my throat.
Abductees point to the scars they retain from their encounters as proof of the experience. Connie Smith thought she had merely dreamed of a violent UFO encounter.
I just woke up in the morning, and I did have that groggy feeling that, that like I've been up all night, yet I got 8 hours sleep.
And I sat down on the couch, and I looked down, and I had a mark just above my knee, and there was no pain to it. You could poke and poke at it, and there was no pain. And then I had a little scab in my belly button with a little pinhole puncture mark in the middle.
Her suspicions deepened when her daughter reported a similar experience.
She had the same huge bruise, which was not painful to her. And I asked if I could see her belly button, and I checked, and she had the same thing as I did.
Jesse Long says he has been abducted repeatedly since his first close encounter at the age of 4. After being subjected to a battery of experiments, he was returned home with a similar telltale scar.
My mother remembers me pointing out that I had a scar on my leg. She said it never bled.
Under the skin, Jesse detected a solid object.
It was in my leg for 34 years, and I finally decided to have it removed. And this is what they took out.
Tests on the object determined its composition to be silicone and trace metals. Jesse believes it is a tracking device. Brian Koski also says he is the victim of multiple abductions.
There's this big black triangle, just moving real slow across the sky, and I kind of followed over, watched it, and got to about here, kind of stopped, pivoted a little bit, made a hissing sound, and then kind of continued on to the north real slow, and just kept watching it.
He says that he was permitted to move about the ship.
Have these little silver panels that they tend to control the ship with their mind. This is the tail they seem to do their navigation from.
Are these accounts merely fantasies, or are they evidence of a staggering development which will alter the course of mankind? Coming up on Unexplained Mysteries, do these twins share an experience so frightening that it proves they have been taken by aliens?
The next thing I remembered was they turned me over, and then they were doing some type of anal exam.
And can their story pass the lie detector test?
There's absolutely, positively no doubt in my mind that they are being absolutely honest with me.
And later, are UFOs snatching humans as part of a chilling plan that could alter our future?
I felt as if somebody had taken my insides and just ripped me open inside, and I could feel something pulling out of me.
Could alien crossbreeding be behind these close encounters?
I had a very vivid experience of having a fetus put into my body and removed.
Or are there other earthly explanations?
It comes from fairy tales, science fiction, film, a lot of sources.
And we'll give you our final analysis with our Onyx report. Stay tuned for more on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, Taken, the Abduction Phenomena. One individual story about being taken may be hard to believe. But what about mass abductions? Groups of people all seized at once, recalling the same chilling event.
A beam coming towards us. I don't know what it's going to do. It makes me feel like I'm flying apart.
Maine's Allagash River is the site of an encounter that forever altered the lives of 4 men.
We were just a couple of guys camping, fishing, and we were excited about getting out of the city and being in the wilderness.
Art students Charlie Fultz, Chuck Rack, and twins Jim and Jack Weiner were looking for a break from the city when they set out for the backwoods of Maine.
The last thing on our minds was any UFOs or anything like that. We just wanted to go fishing. It was very, very dark. So we decided to build a fire so we could find our way back to our campsite. And all four of us climbed in one canoe with our fishing equipment and headed out into the lake. We were out there for approximately 15 or 20 minutes fishing with no luck. And suddenly Chuck Rack said, "Hey guys, that's a heck of a case of swamp gas." And we turned around, and probably 150, maybe 200 yards away at the most, coming out of the trees was this huge ball of glowing, pulsating light.
I remember it as being a very bright, round sphere of light that had kind of a roiling quality to it. It was yellow-white in nature.
The next thing I remembered was seeing the beam coming right towards the back of the canoe. And at that point, we started paddling very quickly towards the shore. And it kept just following us, coming closer and closer and closer. I was in a panic, to be honest with you. A second later, it was right on, almost on top of us, with this beam coming across the water right towards our canoe. And I remember thinking, well, we're not going to outrun this thing. There's no way we're going to outrun this thing. And then the next thing I remembered was standing on the beach.
Back at their campsite, the roaring fire had burnt down to embers.
Elapsed time we thought was 15 or 20 minutes, tops. And we couldn't understand why the fire had burnt down so soon.
None of the men could account for the missing time, nor were they ready to discuss what had just occurred.
The four of us were just left there standing on the beach in total silence. We didn't really even talk to each other. I guess we were in shock.
Little mention was made of the incident for 12 years, until strange dreams began to torment the Wieners.
And then I would wake up, and I would be drenched in sweat, and my heart would be beating really fast.
And having nightmares about being in some room or some area with these strange creatures around us.
I said, I can't believe you're telling me this, because I've been having the same dream.
A psychiatrist evaluated the twins and referred them to UFO researcher Dr. Ray Fowler. Only after agreeing to hypnosis did the brothers begin to recall their shared experience. Here are actual recordings of the session in which all four men from the expedition relived their experience.
A beam is coming towards us. I don't know what it's going to do. It makes me feel like I'm flying apart.
Each of their individual accounts depicted the same harrowing details.
Had no idea where I was. Then I realized that the three guys were sitting to my left on this bench, naked. All I knew is I was in a strange place, laying naked, paralyzed, with this thing coming towards me.
I remember these creatures examining my brother with a type of wand.
The next thing I remembered was they turned me over, and then they were doing some type of anal exam.
I remembered pressure, heat of my physical body being ripped to shreds, like on a molecular level. I mean, it's the only way I can verbalize it, but it is an extremely unpleasant feeling. It feels like death.
I think that the Wieners opened Pandora's box because now they have questions about reality that they never had before. They have questions for which there are no answers.
To eliminate the possibility of a hoax, Ray Fowler arranged for a polygraph test to be administered.
After administering the examinations, there's absolutely, positively no doubt in my mind that they are being absolutely honest with me when they tell me that they were confronted by a phenomena in the Allagash region.
One person might fool a polygraph examiner. You have four all passing the tests, and the polygraph examiner being convinced that all four are telling the truth is very important. I feel very strongly that what they describe is a real experience.
But to these men, the trip up the Allagash was only the start of an ongoing journey.
It's not over. This is an ongoing thing. We're tagged. What can I do? Go hide? they're going to find you.
Next up, if extraterrestrials are abducting humans, what is their alien agenda?
That is a woman crying out in emotional pain that her child is being taken from her.
Are these events tied to the essence of human biology?
Sometimes we'd be abducted and there would be sexual situations that would pair off.
They've lost their own reproductive capabilities, so they are trying to find a new genetic stock with us.
And later, Hollywood's take on aliens.
Close encounters, for good or evil, had an enormous effect on what people expected aliens to look like.
We'll put it all in perspective in our exclusive On X report, coming up on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, Taken, the abduction phenomenon. For those who have been taken, the question is not if abductions occur, but why. Indianapolis, Indiana. Debbie Jordan and her mother, Janet White, noticed a glowing beam of light radiating from their backyard.
As I looked out the window, I seen a light that was about the size of a basketball.
A really strange light coming out of the pump house that's next to the swimming pool out back.
Debbie armed herself with a shotgun and ventured toward the light.
And Debbie went out in the back, and I watched her out the back door, and she came to the pump house, and she opened the door.
All of a sudden, I feel like my whole body is on fire. Every inch of my skin is burning. And I realized I couldn't move. And I also could hardly see. It was like I'd been attacked by a mob of tourists with cameras flashing me in the eyes.
Neither woman could immediately recall what happened next.
Later, we figured out I was gone in like an hour and a half, and I don't remember like 10 minutes.
Debbie immediately came down with a mysterious disease, and the family dog that lived in the backyard succumbed to what was suspected radiation sickness. These clues and the neighbor's identical account of the blinding light drew the attention of UFO researcher Bud Hopkins.
There was more evidence supporting this abduction than any so far investigated.
Hopkins first studied the ground where the incident took place.
This is what happened to that nice, rich, loamy, black-brown soil that the backyard in Indiana had. It was turned sort of gray and hard as a rock.
Hopkins persuaded Debbie to submit to hypnotherapy.
Something's not right. Like I was being squashed.
Squashed? The whole body?
My stomach.
Under hypnosis, an alarming discovery. Debbie Jordan had been pregnant at the time of the incident, but lost the baby.
I felt as if somebody had taken my insides and just ripped me open inside, and I could feel something pulling out of me, and this little tiny thing that looked like a mouse with no skin on it.
This is the first case that let us understand the alien's purpose.
Hopkins' theory that alien abduction phenomenon is related to a need to genetically manipulate the human species.
That is a woman crying out in pain, emotional pain, that her child is being taken from her.
Through hypnosis, Debbie recalled witnessing a human-like child during her encounter.
She had tufts of white cottony hair sticking out of her head all over, really large eyes, but human, blue. When I thought, oh, I'd love to hug you, I asked if I could take her home with me. And he told me no, she could survive with me. I assumed they were telling me that I was this child's mother.
Debbie says her abductions continued for years afterward, halting only after her hysterectomy. But now, her legacy of abduction has been passed to her 2 children.
I don't expect people to believe any of the stuff that me or any of my family members tell them. Believe me, if I hadn't seen some of this stuff with my own eyes, there's no way I would have believed any of it.
Next, is an alien sexual agenda behind the abduction phenomenon?
It could be other people's wives, other people's husbands.
I've experienced certain things like that. I was with an alien that wasn't totally at will. It's hard to explain.
Hear one woman's account of carrying an alien baby.
I had a very vivid experience of having a fetus put into my body and removed. It's ridiculously hard for me to talk about.
And later, Hollywood's controversial role in producing the abduction phenomenon.
Close encounters, for good or evil, had an enormous effect on what people expected aliens to look like.
And you'll see the ultimate roundup of the facts, our Unex report, coming up on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, Taken, the abduction phenomenon. They are close encounters of the most intimate variety. As reports of abductions continue to rise, so too does another alarming trend: the aggressive sexual nature of many recent abductions. Saugerties, New York. James LaFonte and friends began seeking refuge from the city on regular weekend trips to the woodlands of the upstate region.
I first met James in '87, and a few friends of us, we all went upstate to the trailer just to have a nice weekend and enjoy ourselves and have fun.
Going up weekly almost became an addiction. It was for enjoyment, but it was almost like we were being called back.
As with many abduction reports, the first sign of an unusual occurrence was the shared sense of lost time.
James LaFonte contacted me because of certain fragmented memories. He'd been with a group of friends, and they knew something had happened. There was a time lapse.
Hopkins uncovered a common trait among the group: memories of alien contact in childhood.
Ever since I was a child, I used to wake up and I used to see white light and shadowy figures moving around my bed, and I would get scared.
When I was younger, I remember like an alien looking through the window, being watched, a feeling of being watched all the time.
Through hypnotherapy, Hopkins yielded shared traumatic memories.
It turns out week by week, we were all being abducted as a group.
Like on a table. They have big eyes and skin looks molded. I gotta get out of here.
But the detail and scope of these repressed memories exposed an incident of group abduction beyond any on record.
I remember seeing these bright lights almost in every window, and there's domes on top of the trailer. And everything was glowing, and we just become basically paralyzed. During the abduction, we would walk down this dark, dark road in a trance state.
And we'd be walking to the craft, which was always in the same spot in this pit area.
The Saugerties group recalled forced medical tests, and there seemed to be a disturbing focus to the experiments.
Something was being worked on my genitals. I would see James across the room, and the same thing being done to him. I do know the sperm was removed.
To some experts, the group's accounts expose an alien agenda of harvesting human genetic material.
There's a very great interest on the part of the UFO occupants in human reproduction, sperm, ova, the DNA, but it has also included an interest in human sexuality itself.
Sometimes we would be abducted and there would be sexual situations that would pair off.
It could be other people's wives, other people's husbands, different friends that we were with.
According to LaFonte, the experimental pairings could also include alien participants.
I've experienced certain things like that. I was with an alien that wasn't totally at will. It's hard to explain.
To further cope with their trauma, members of the group sought counseling with a clinical psychologist.
Generally, when I work with people using their imagination, there's a personalized stamp that people put into their imagery because it's being generated from a part of themselves. These abductees and their reports do not have this kind of personalized stamp, and I think it makes it even more credible.
I lost plenty of jobs, I lost friends, I lost family, I lost a number of things, and it got to the point where I would, I was contemplating suicide in a sense because there was no escape.
Is the disturbing account of the Socrates group a hint as to why aliens are seeking out humankind? If so, many believe that Kim Carlsberg represents the next piece of the puzzle. Kim Carlsberg was a successful professional photographer when an encounter experience changed the direction of her life.
I came home, went to bed, I woke up, and I was not in my bed any longer. I was standing in what I thought was an elevator. I was paralyzed.
Like so many prior abductee accounts, Kim recalls medical experiments happening around her.
And there were these little short off-white beings, naked guys with big black eyes doing things to these people on these tables. And I didn't know if I was going to live through the night. I really thought that these people might be dead, and I thought that I was going to be next. So I started screaming, and a taller alien that looked just like these guys walked up behind me and slapped me on the back of the neck, and I started to pass out. Next thing I knew, I woke up. I was in a smaller room by myself on a table, and I'm completely disoriented. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happened to me.
In a series of semi-lucid flashes, Kim recalls the alien testing.
I had an experience where they put a metal rod to my tailbone, and they take skin samples. I had something shoved up my nose. I felt this drug feeling come over my body, and I knew that I was going to be unconscious within a matter of seconds, and there wasn't anything that I could do about it. And I woke up back in my bed, and at that point, I thought that I had completely lost my mind. I knew I wasn't hallucinating, but it was the only logical explanation.
And that encounter was not an isolated episode. She has had numerous subsequent abductions. One memory is particularly harrowing.
I had a very vivid experience of having a fetus put into my body and removed. It's ridiculously hard for me to talk about.
Is Kim's experience corroborating evidence to others' accounts of baby harvesting? If so, why would an advanced race need human babies? One theory holds that alien evolution may have stalled, requiring human DNA for future development.
Some people hypothesize that their planet or where they come from is arid and barren, and they've lost their own reproductive capabilities, so they are trying to find a new genetic stock with us.
They do need our genes to propagate their own species.
It's a recurring theme that we hear from a lot of abductees. They're studying us, they're studying our sexuality, our emotions, and they're using us for some design goal as the center of this experiment.
Kim's story has been met with fierce skepticism.
I know how crazy it sounds for a woman to say she's been implanted with an alien fetus. I'm an intelligent woman, I'm highly educated, I know how the world perceives it, but I'm sorry, it's the truth.
To Kim and all abductees, the need for more research into the abduction phenomenon is urgent. Such study could either prove the reality of their claims or provide alternate answers for these troubling encounters.
An extraordinary phenomenon such as this demands an extraordinary investigation. It is irresponsible to dismiss it.
Next on Unexplained Mysteries, are these alien encounters influenced by popular culture
The more people know about what aliens are expected to look like, the more they're likely to describe an alien as looking like that preconceived idea.
Or is Hollywood merely mirroring actual incidents?
I think what was unique about Close Encounters is it was science fiction, and yet in a sense it wasn't.
They can't tell the difference between whether it was a memory or a real event, or whether it was imagination. And this is the problem.
And finally, we'll analyze the evidence in our UNEX report on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, Taken, the Abduction Phenomenon. With reported sightings and alien encounters growing each year, so too have the skeptical inquiries from non-believers. Notable among this group are a number of prominent psychologists who claim that the real root of the UFO phenomenon lies deep in the unconscious mind.
It's what we call waking dreams. When people start to fall asleep, many occasions, they have a peculiar mixture of reality and fantasy or dreams. And in this particular state of consciousness, which is an altered state, they see little aliens and they see spaceships and lights in the sky and so on.
But others defend the technique for abductees in this fragile state.
They appear to have been overwhelmed by an episode outside their own control and making, which leaves them in a post-traumatic state.
It is this very condition that makes them vulnerable to suggestion.
They can't tell the difference between whether it was a memory or a real event, or whether it was imagination. And this is the problem.
That's very interesting. Either there's something very special about this fantasy that causes what otherwise does not occur, or it's not a fantasy.
Others point out that abductions were scarcely reported before the science fiction boom of the mid-1950s carried visions of aliens into popular culture.
This is a composite of what they look like. Larger eyes, smaller nose, no lips, no protruding part of the ear, no hair, and a gray tone to the skin.
A New Hampshire couple, Betty and Barney Hill, made news by becoming the first to claim that they had been abducted by aliens. UFO experts point to the Hill abduction as a watershed event in alien evolution. But to author James Oberg, the case is notable for more earthly reasons.
A lot of Betty's memories are directly traceable back to a movie called Invaders from Mars. Many of the themes, many of the imageries from that film appear in almost recognizable form in Betty's story. In the account, there was kidnapping, being taken on board a flying saucer. There were needles being inserted into people's brains or other parts of their bodies.
Barney Hill's recollections focused on one major feature.
The unique feature here is these wraparound eyes, the eyeballs that move off to the forehead, off to the side of the head. It was very original, and yet less than 2 weeks after this face first appeared on television, Barney Hill, under hypnosis, suddenly remembered that his aliens had eyes like that, had eyes that wrapped around. Was it cause and effect? Did he see the show? Was his memory polluted by this Hollywood version? Can't prove it, but the sequence is highly suggestive.
By the early 1970s, Hollywood seemed to settle on an accepted standard for what an alien looked like. According to skeptics, this design trend was again echoed in the description by alleged abductees.
The thing you'll never forget when you look into the face of these things is the eyes.
Very large, intimidating black eyes.
Very small opening for a mouth, no ears.
Tremendous head, very thin body, long arms.
Yet, science fiction archivist Ron Miller traces images back much further.
It comes from fairy tales, science fiction, film, a lot of sources. They go back decades, even a century or more. One of the earliest sort of realistic depictions of an alien I have from a book that was published in 1884.
90 years later, a Steven Spielberg film about alien contact cemented the image. Did Close Encounters of the Third Kind also plant suggestions in the minds of future abductees?
Close Encounters, for good or evil, had an enormous effect on what people expected aliens to look like. And if anything really focused all these disparate threads into one sort of standard alien, it was Close Encounters.
But Joe Elvis, the production designer for Close Encounters, claims that logic is reversed.
I think what was unique about Close Encounters is it was science fiction, and yet in a sense it wasn't, because we weren't manufacturing something that was convenient. We took these things from all the encounters that we could record and sort of put it into the funnel, and it came out with these kind of images.
Kelly Freas, a celebrated science fiction illustrator, is disappointed by the dominance of the gray, both in pop culture and in the reports of abductees.
I hate to think that the universe is so dull that that's the best it can come up with. Are we supposed to assume that only one race managed to accomplish space flight and come to the Earth? Or are there more races out there? If so, what do the other races look like?
When we come back, the Unex Report examines the facts and addresses the mysteries. What can we learn from all of these abductees reporting nearly identical encounters? And do aliens really have an agenda for mankind? Or is extraterrestrial contact the product of our collective imagination? That's the Unex Report, next on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, Taken, the abduction phenomenon. Now, our Unex Report. The past 40 years have seen a surge in reports of man being taken by aliens. Experts point to a number of signs as evidence of abduction, such as missing time.
This missing time aspect is very, very common in abduction experiences, where the person cannot remember where he or she was.
Other indications include strange medical symptoms and even implants.
It was in my leg for 34 years, and I finally decided to have it removed, and this is what they took out.
The use of hypnosis is increasingly being used to access hidden memories of alien encounters.
And there were these little short off-white beings, naked guys with big black eyes, doing things to these people on these tables.
I felt as if somebody had taken my insides and just ripped me open inside.
Over and over again, we get these hidden consistencies in abduction reports which come out through hypnosis.
And there are striking similarities in the descriptions of the aliens.
Very large, intimidating black eyes.
Very small opening for a mouth, no ears.
Tremendous head, very thin body, long arms.
Many encounters now seem to reveal that an alien breeding agenda may be behind many abductions.
There's a very great interest on the part of the UFO occupants in human reproduction.
They do need our genes to propagate their own species.
I had a very vivid experience of having a fetus put into my body and removed.
Among the most compelling cases are mass abductions. Subjects are taken together and recall the same experience.
During the abduction, we would walk down this dark road in a trance state.
I remember these creatures examining my brother with a type of wand.
Polygraph machines have further verified their accounts.
There's absolutely, positively no doubt in my mind that they are being absolutely honest with me.
But skeptics maintain that Hollywood is the real source of all alien sightings.
The more people know about what aliens are expected to look like, the more they're likely to describe an alien as looking like that preconceived idea.
One thing is certain: the complex reality of abduction will continue to spur debate as long as so many questions remain unanswered.
It is irresponsible to dismiss it. An extraordinary phenomenon such as this demands an extraordinary investigation.
Until that time, the alien abduction phenomenon will remain an unexplained mystery.
The heat and energy comes from the molten core deep inside the lonely planet. If the Planemo is a gas giant like Jupiter, it may have a system of moons. The gravitational pull between the Planemo and its moons creates friction, causing the interior of the moons to stay warm.
These moons could also have life on them, in the same way that Jupiter's moon Io has volcanoes and has a lot of heat energy being generated by interactions with Jupiter and the other moons.
If anything lives here, it will be single cells, like common bacteria found on Earth. Not complex life forms. Without a sun to provide photosynthesis, these tiny organisms derive their energy from the chemistry in the soil of the Planemo, or its moon. On Earth, there are similar conditions. Colonies of bacteria are found deep within mine shafts in South Africa. They have no access to oxygen nor light, and survive entirely on the chemicals they make from the surrounding dirt. Their metabolisms are extremely slow, and they reproduce only once every 1,000 years. If life dwells on a sunless Planemo, it could be organisms like them, marooned when their planet was young. While Planemos slumber undisturbed, there are worse places to be in the universe. Like in the company of this lethal pulsar, some 980 light years from Earth, in the constellation of Virgo. From afar, a pulsar looks like a blinking light, but up close, pulsars machine gun their surroundings with deadly radiation. They are no place for planets. Yet something interferes with the precision of this pulsar. One explanation is that the anomaly is caused by a planet. But many astronomers are skeptical that planets orbiting a pulsar can exist.
The reason that's a problem is because pulsars are formed in these incredible explosions.
When a red giant star explodes, a titanic fireball known as a supernova unleashes as much energy in 1 minute as our sun generates in its lifetime.
When a star goes supernova, the shockwave is so immense it's hard to imagine any planet surviving that.
When the cosmic dust clears, all that remains is the crushed core of the red giant. pulsing in the heart of an expanding debris field. Matter blasted from the colossal explosion falls back to the pulsar and forms a disk. Within this chaos, a new world arises, born of fire and destruction. A planetary zombie raised from the carcass of the former red giant star.
It's amazing that planets could form in that environment.
A planet orbiting a pulsar will give you the feeling of being in a disco bar with a very strong strobe light, which is the pulsar.
Radiation from this stellar beast breaks down the organic molecules needed for life.
The pulsar has these very strong magnetic fields that are being spun around as the star is rotating quickly, and it's picking up any material, electrons, protons, and speeding them up and slinging them out at high speed. So it's like a solar wind with a vengeance.
I can't imagine that there would be much of an opportunity for even simple life, microbial life, to emerge and to flourish on a planet around a pulsar. Largely because if you were in the pulse, you'd be severely energized, and if you were not in the pulse, you would be completely devoid of energy.
The discovery of pulsar planets shows how new worlds can form in the wake of a star's destruction. No matter where a planet arises, the process of its birth is fraught with danger. Sometimes, the violence is so great, the end of the world comes before the beginning. 2007. Astronomers using the giant Gemini North telescope make a strange discovery in the Pleiades cluster some 400 light-years from Earth. A star known only by its catalog number, HD 23514, is surrounded by a giant donut-shaped cloud of dust and gas. The star in the middle of the donut shape is about 100 million years old. A cosmic toddler in astronomical terms. Our sun is 45 times older. The conditions are perfect for planets to form. But spectral analysis finds something strange. The dust is utterly pulverized. Typically, a newborn star is surrounded by fledgling planets.
Planets form around the young star in a protoplanetary disk of gas and dust. And then these planets go on their merry way orbiting the star, not realizing that they're in an orbit that's too close to another planet.
Millions of years ago, two primordial planets orbiting HD 23514 are spinning toward doom. As the two worlds close in, tidal forces torque each planet from spheres to egg shapes. Nothing remains. The two worlds are annihilated, creating the dust and debris seen around star HD 23514. 4 billion years ago, a similar apocalypse came to Earth. A Mars-sized planet forms in roughly the same orbit as the newborn Earth. Like the planets at HD 23514, Earth and this Mars-sized body are barreling toward each other.
If you happen to be unlucky enough to be standing on a growing planet when it was in the process of still becoming the Earth, you might wake up one morning and notice that the sky was getting darker and darker as a Mars-sized body was coming at you within a period of less than an hour.
When it hits, the shock wave is felt all over the planet, scouring the surface of the Earth. The collision obliterates one side of the planet. Molten rock sprays out into space. The entire globe is peppered by meteors and noxious vapor.
It would actually make hell look like a Bahamas vacation.
The debris field from the collision coalesces and forms our moon. It is a new beginning for our planet.
Collisions are part of the birth process for planetary systems. Building up a terrestrial planet is probably all about colliding pieces of rock together.
And all across the galaxy, colliding pieces of rock are forming terrestrial worlds that defy the imagination.
There is a new planet out there. A planet we were not aware of existing before.
It is not just one planet. It is a new type of planet. Earth on steroids.
I like to call them super Earths. They're just like the Earth, except bigger, up to about 10 times the mass of the Earth. One family that the super Earths resemble just like our own Earth. Continents, oceans. Some of them may be very dry, like Mars. And then another family that we call water worlds or ocean planets that are completely covered with water.
Welcome to Gliese 581c.
This planet was found by Michel Mayor, and it orbits with 2 other planets around a very small star.
It's only 20 light years away in the constellation of Libra and is one of the smallest terrestrial planets found beyond our solar system. That doesn't mean Gliese 581c is small. It's still a super-Earth with 5 times the mass of our home planet. But it's the possibility of liquid water that excites scientists.
An ocean planet feels like being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, with no land inside, just water, puffy white clouds, and blue sky above you. The winds on the ocean world are going to be similar to that of the Earth, so it will be a very good place to sail.
The weather's absolutely perfect. Every day you get a clear blue sky and the sun just stays in the same place. Now how's that for weather prediction?
No land anywhere. Even miles beneath the surface.
This water layer would extend very far down, at least a quarter of the way down in the planet.
But as we dive deeper into the sea, the pressure builds. At 35,000 feet below the surface, we pass the point where the deepest oceans on Earth bottom out. We pass the 100,000 foot mark. The pressure is so great, water itself begins to take on surprising new forms. At a depth of 10 times the greatest ocean depth on Earth, we reach the bottom.
When you have a large amount of water, then at the bottom of an ocean, you will form very high pressure in excess of 1 million atmospheres. And that pressure will compress the liquid water, that is the ocean, into a state which we call ice 7.
No, it's not like ice in your refrigerator. The molecules of water that are in the ice in your refrigerator are kind of all jumbled up. But if you form ice under very high pressure, then The water molecules can become ordered, they can become aligned.
I can show you a crystal that is a very good analog to ice 7. This is halite, also known commonly as rock salt.
Ice 7 may exist within our own solar system. Europa, a moon of Jupiter, could possibly have a mantle of liquid water surrounded by a thick, icy crust. The pressure from the crust is so great that Ice 7 might exist deep within these uncharted seas. If we scale up and thaw out Europa, it could be a water world similar to Gliese 581c.
One could imagine that life could emerge on a water world. After all, water is essential to life on Earth.
Everywhere on Earth where there is water, there is life. You cannot find a sterile drop of water on Earth unless you put it in the microwave yourself.
On this water world, there could be bacteria or any kind of life in the ocean itself.
But not all of the super-Earths are water worlds teeming with life.
When we talk about super-Earths, we talked about two major families of mostly rocky with some water and mostly water with an endless ocean. But one has to add to those a third family of probably very rare super-Earths and Earth-like planets, which are called carbon planets.
A carbon planet is unlike anything we've ever seen anywhere. A place with an alien chemistry, but loaded with very earthly treasures. Throughout our galaxy, there are planets barren and poor and inhospitable. But science is on the trail of a new type of planet, an entire world of treasure.
In our own solar system, in our sun and in all the stars nearby, there's always more oxygen than carbon. But if we think of a place in the universe where there's more carbon than oxygen, then planet formation is very different.
Spectral analysis shows carbon to be far more plentiful, 26,000 light years away near the center of our galaxy. Planets that form here may contain a rich abundance of carbon. The morning sky on a carbon world would be anything but crystal clear and blue.
I'm picturing a yellow haze with black clouds of soot. And as you descended farther down in the atmosphere, I could imagine lakes that were made out of compounds like methane or gasoline. I'm picturing these bubbling, foul-smelling pits of black ooze, like an oil well.
With little or no water in the atmosphere, the air is made of carbon compounds.
Methane, butane, pentane, benzene, all these different kinds of carbon compounds that separate out when you refine gasoline. One day it might be raining benzene. The next day it might be raining butane.
Alien as carbon planets might seem, the air quality could be familiar to some.
The air in a very benzene-rich planet will resemble that of LA. A lot of smog particles that unfortunately we are quite used to from the exhaust of cars.
Despite the pollution, carbon planets could come with a sparkling upside.
You might see diamond because the planet may have substantial quantities of pure carbon that it's formed out of. And pure carbon, when you compress it, tends to form into diamond.
The secrets of exotic planets like these are waiting to be discovered all across the galaxy. But astronomers won't be satisfied until they find the Holy Grail. A planet like our own, one that sustains life, the next Earth.
People always ask me, do I think we're going to find another planet like Earth? And I answer, absolutely.
Every star probably has planets roughly the same size as our Earth.
We think that essentially every star has several Earth mass or super Earth mass planets. So if you have, say, 200 billion stars in the galaxy, that may mean there are 400 billion Earths in the galaxy or more.
400 billion Earths. The Kepler Space Observatory is the first instrument capable of finding one of these planets.
Kepler is looking at the constellation Cygnus in the night sky at 100,000 stars, taking picture after picture after picture, minute after minute. And the goal of Kepler is simple: to look for stars among the 100,000 that dim.
When a star dims slightly, it means a planet passes in front, blocking some of the light. How long the star dims and how much light gets blocked will tell scientists about the size of the planet and the distance from its sun.
A good analogy for this is looking for the dip in the light that you would see from a searchlight if a small moth flew across the searchlight. And so it's a really tiny dip in the light as the planet transits.
It is a very powerful technique because it allows you to discover planets that are even smaller than the size of the Earth around stars similar to the Sun.
It is a technique that is changing the course of science.
We think we may be able to find a planet that is habitable in the next few years.
Scientists estimate the Kepler mission will find a minimum of 50 alien Earths.
One of the big questions that anybody looking for life beyond the Earth is facing today is, what if we don't recognize life even though we discover it?
Conditions on an alien Earth may cause life to evolve differently.
My hope is that we'll see some sign that will make our hairs stand up on the back of our necks.
Whatever that sign is, it will be the first chapter on the greatest scientific story ever told. They're out there, lurking in the vastness of space. Planets so weird, even science fiction could not foresee them. For the first time ever, scientists are discovering alien worlds beyond our solar system. Places where ice is hot and rain is made of iron. They are uncharted, unearthly, unpredictable. And somewhere, hidden among these strange new worlds, scientists seek the greatest discoveries of all. Planets like ours, alien Earths.
35 seconds. Storage tank press closed.
March 6, 2009.
22 seconds. Later, GN2 pressure go.
This Delta II rocket is going through its final pre-flight check.
7.1.3. Drop 1.
Engine start, 1, 0, and liftoff.
It is the start of an extraordinarily ambitious mission. The Kepler Space Observatory is hunting for planets like Earth within a region of 100,000 stars. It is the culmination of a journey that began more than a decade ago with one of the most profound scientific discoveries ever made. (1995). Swiss astronomer Michel Mayor and his team make a routine observation of stars in the constellation Pegasus, located 50 light-years away. But the instruments show something strange. One star is violently lurching and wobbling.
What we discovered, it's one of these stars have a velocity changing with time.
What is powerful enough to disturb a star the size of our sun? Mayor offers a radical answer: a planet. But no one has ever seen a planet around another sun-like star.
Problem in detecting planets around other stars is that as a planet orbits a nearby star, that planet gets lost because of its feeble light in the glare of the very bright star.
In spite of the odds, Mayor relies on his data and is convinced the wobbles are caused by the gravitational pull of an orbiting planet.
When I read this claim from Michel Mayor, I was very skeptical. There had been many false claims of the first planet ever discovered around another star, and I thought to myself, oh boy, here we go again. So I decided to observe the star on 4 consecutive nights. And stunningly, the star was shown to wobble exactly as Michel Mayor had said.
Michel Mayor and his teammate Didier Queloz announced their discovery. It rocks the scientific community.
They had found for the first time reproducible, confirmable evidence of the existence of a planet around a sun-like star.
Officially called 51 Pegasi b, the planet is nicknamed Bellerophon in honor of the Greek hero who tamed the winged horse Pegasus. It is a planet that breaks all the rules. Bellerophon roasts in the blazing starlight at temperatures of roughly 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. It is nearly 150 times more massive than Earth and is a gas giant like Jupiter.
A gas giant is a planet made mostly of hydrogen and helium. Only the outer layers are gas, but inside, hydrogen and helium is compressed to huge, huge, huge pressures. It doesn't resemble a gas at all.
Unlike anything found in our solar system, this is an entirely new class of planet, what scientists call a hot Jupiter.
If you go to Hawaii and see the lava flow there, that's how hot a hot Jupiter is. It's very, very hot.
The Earth is a comfortable 93 million miles away from the Sun.
These hot Jupiters are roughly 100 times closer, and so the amount of sunlight that they get is 10,000 times larger.
If this represents a star, and this a hot Jupiter is 3 to 4 stellar diameters away from the star. So that would be 1, 2, 3. This is how close a hot Jupiter would be to its star. Hot Jupiters are tidally locked. They present the same face to the star at all times, just like the moon does to Earth.
It's going to be permanent daylight on one side and permanent nighttime on the back. If I were stuck on a hot Jupiter, I'd want to be on the back side and hope that some of the heat from the front side facing the star would make its way around the back.
The variations in temperature make Bellerophon's atmosphere extremely windy. The wind howls at thousands of miles per hour, far beyond anything we could ever withstand. The heat blast guarantees water vapor cannot exist. But that doesn't mean there is no rain.
It's far too hot for water liquid clouds to form here. But instead, these clouds would be made out of iron.
Iron vapor can exist at temperatures much higher than water. And because of that, things could get a little messy.
You better have an umbrella that's pretty sturdy, because the iron is going to start coating your umbrella very rapidly and making it extremely heavy and just crush that umbrella.
The sky overhead is filled with dancing curtains of color. Charged particles from the nearby star make auroras far more extreme than the northern lights on Earth. There is something even more unique about this newly discovered world. Bellerophon orbits its sun in a blistering 4.2 days.
No self-respecting planet goes around a star in 4.2 days. None of the planets in our solar system take such a short amount of time.
For scientists, the tiny orbit challenges long-held notions of how planets form.
The fact that the planet was orbiting every 4 days was a total puzzle until one night in the middle of the night I woke up and said, well, this must be proof that planets migrate inwards. They don't stay put where they are.
The key to the puzzle is found in how planets are made.
Planets are a byproduct of star formation. When stars form, they have a disk of dust and debris around them, and out of that debris, planets form.
Much of what we know comes from Hubble's Space Telescope, as it aims at regions like the Eagle Nebula. This interstellar cloud is studded with collapsing disks of dust and gas. A giant clump grows in the center of each disk. Temperatures reach a searing 18 million degrees. The same nuclear fusion that powers our sun is unleashed. The star is born. Radiation from the star generates a stellar wind that sweeps away leftover dust and debris. Some of the dust survives and remains in orbit around the newborn star. Over millions of years, the dust sticks together, forming knots that grow into asteroids, and the asteroids grow into planets. These planets migrate through the disk until they find a stable orbit. This is why Bellerophon is so close to its parent star. But one newly discovered world has found its stable orbit in a place no planet should ever go. 2001. Hubble Space Telescope is directed to an obscure star some 150 light-years away from Earth, in the constellation of Pegasus. This is the same region where Bellerophon was found 6 years earlier. Hubble is tracking another hot Jupiter, discovered by astronomer Jeff Marcy. But this one is different from Bellerophon.
You've probably heard of the planet HD 209458b. It's a terrible name.
A terrible name for a terrible place. HD 209458b has been dubbed by some as Osiris, after the Egyptian god of the dead. Osiris is over 200 times more massive than Earth. It has migrated perilously close to its sun, at a mere 4 million miles from the blazing solar surface. Osiris broils in a planetary hell. The average daily temperature on Osiris is over 2,000 degrees. Forget global warming. This is global frying. and it causes Osiris to lose an estimated 550,000 tons of air every second.
There's a leak of gas, a steady stream of hydrogen and helium, and that's making a big, huge cloud all around the planet.
Its atmosphere is bleeding into space. Scientists speculate that a colossal trail of gas spirals behind the planet for thousands of miles. Osiris presents an unprecedented opportunity for astronomers. Using Hubble, they analyze the alien planet's bloated atmosphere.
This is the absolutely first time where we could tell what is the composition of the atmosphere of an extrasolar planet.
Surprisingly, Hubble detects many of the basic chemicals needed for life. Sodium, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But Osiris is far too hot for life as we know it.
There may be other forms of life, however, that thrive on higher temperatures.
But there's no solid surface as we know it on a hot Jupiter. So this life would have to be just tiny little microbes floating around on aerosols. And on our own Earth, we have life that floats around in our atmosphere. But that life didn't start there. So life almost certainly would not exist on hot Jupiters.
Astronomers have discovered many hot Jupiters since Bellerophon was found in 1995. But conditions on these worlds rule them out as places where the drama of life can unfold. One of these gas giants is a planet that teases the rules of evolution. Astronomer Jeff Marcy discovers something shocking about a planet orbiting a star called 16 Cygnus b, located some 70 light-years away in the constellation of Cygnus, the Swan.
The planet was clearly in an elongated orbit, bringing the planet close to and then far from the host star. And this, of course, defied our expectations based on our own solar system, where all of the planets go around our sun in nearly circular orbits like phonograph grooves in a record.
Like a giant yo-yo in space, the gas giant swings back and forth across its solar system. That is like the Earth swooping 25 million miles closer to the sun, then slinging past Mars, all the way out towards Jupiter every year. And like all of the gas giants in our solar system, this yo-yo planet might have an entourage of moons. Marcy speculates that one of these moons could be similar to Earth.
And here's where the interesting story begins. Imagine a rocky moon with lakes, oceans, maybe streams and waterfalls on the surface. The moon orbiting its planet, the two of them orbiting the host star.
Unlike the airless moon that circles the Earth, this moon is a world with extreme seasons. On Earth, the seasons are caused by the tilt of our planet. Here, they are caused by the elongated orbit.
These poor planets that are in these elongated elliptical orbits suffer terrible changes in their climate throughout a year.
As they make their closest approach, the yo-yo planet and its moon are blowtorched by the star. Summer begins. The atmosphere on the Earth-like moon is savaged with raging storms. Category 5 hurricanes on Earth are tiny eddies compared to the monster vortexes that form here. The clouds thicken as the water evaporates.
Temperatures rise dramatically. Any water or gases would heat up, and indeed the oceans would boil into steam, so you'd end up with a big steam bath.
During the peak of the summer, the entire moon is smothered in 800-degree temperatures. This is the closest approach to the star. During its 26-month orbit, the summer season is barely 2 months long. But what a season! The planet and its moon swing away from the furnace of the star. Temperatures fall to ranges we would find temperate and comfortable. With the coming of